What a Wednesday night of college basketball we have on the horizon, on the docket, on the slate, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben. He is Donnie. We go all around the country at the D1 level in men's college hoops on this Wednesday. Only one ranked versus ranked top 25 tilt, and it comes in the Southeastern Conference. Down to Tuscaloosa, we roll. Alabama, an 8.5-point favorite against Florida. The 13th ranked Crimson Tide, 24th in the country, is where the Gators check in this week, back inside the AP top 25. Look at that over-under, 174.5. Any total in the mid-150s is up there for college basketball. Into the 160s, it's an offensive explosion. 174 and a hook might be the highest scoring game we have seen all year. So will we get some points tonight in Tuscaloosa?
Getting some teams both into the mid-80s is wild, but you should get some tempo, and rightfully so with Alabama, the way they like to play and shoot the three-point shot. But let's take a look at this game, Ben, in its totality, and where the matchup, I think, lends to maybe have a decisive end on a side. Now, Alabama is a favorite by 8.5 here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Seems like a steep price, and rightfully so, but also we know that it's hard to win on the road. And when you are a ranked first-ranked opponent, we've already seen this usually plays out in your favor. If you're just reading lines, it's a stone-cold Alabama line. But coming into this game, UF has won 7 of 8 games here, but how about Alabama? Winners of 12 of their past 14. Both of these offenses are good in their own right, but Alabama comes in at an unprecedented efficiency level here. Number one in the SEC, coming in at a 119.7, which is incredible. Why? It's because they steal extra points by shooting a ton of three-point shots and making a ton of three-point shots. And oh, by the way, how about as a free throw as a team here? 80.6% SEC play. So if you foul them, they will make you pay. But here's where I start to talk about styles that make fights. Do we expect a lot of points in this game? Absolutely. But if I was going to pick out a defensive structure to try to beat Alabama with, it would be Florida. Why? I just told you. If we're looking just at three-point shooting here in the SEC, number 2 in conference play at 38%, that's Alabama. And how about this? Alabama shoots more three-point shots than any team in the SEC. Over 50% of their shots in conference play come from behind the arc, which means shoot it at a high percentage and a volume number. That's unbelievable. But look at Florida's defense and the footprint of how they play out. Actually defend the three-point shot fairly well, Ben, at about 32%. But equally as important, take a look at the style components here. Number 2 in the conference at chasing you off the three-point line. That's the Florida Gators. Take a look at point distribution. There's 14 teams, Ben, in the SEC. They're 14th at allowing total points from three-point range. If there's one way to stop Alabama, chase them and defend the three-point line and frustrate them. Now, granted, you might say, Donnie, they're very good inside the arc, shooting 56%. I understand that, but their point distribution on two-point shots here, Ben, 14th in conference play. It's the perfect matchup for Florida. Am I saying Florida goes in and wins in a mismatch because they should be favored? No, I'm not. But I'm going to take the points in this instant. I just like the way Florida's defense matches up with Alabama. I think they can stay within that number.
What Donnie just broke down right there is key to college basketball handicapping. Now, into March, into the big dance. It's the 4 factors that Ken Palm lays out for you. Alabama, as a team, the most efficient offense in the country, but 48.5% of the overall shots they take from the floor come from behind the arc. 6th most in all of college basketball. There are 362 D1 men's college hoops teams. Florida only allows their opponents to have about 27% of their overall scoring output come from three-point range. That would seem to nullify, just based on the numbers, Alabama's greatest advantage over teams. Donnie just broke that down, and it was a great breakdown and something to remember. Both teams, 2 of the 40th fastest tempos, 2 of the 40 fastest tempos in college basketball, 2 of the top 10 most efficient offenses, 2 defenses that rank outside of the top 70 in college basketball. It makes sense to see 174.5 as the total, just a little bit steep for my blood. Mark Zinno brought this up as well. In games where we have seen 2 top 25 teams face off, the home team after last night, where both of the home teams, Creighton as a dog, BYU as a slight favorite, won outright and, of course, then covered their number. 29-8 straight up this year in a matchup between 2 top 25 teams, for the home team winning outright in 29 of 37, and those teams covering numbers 23, 12, and 2 against the spread. 8.5-point number in favor of Bama tonight in Tuscaloosa. We pick up the pace here like Alabama and Florida will display tonight to go to the SEC and stay in the SEC, LSU and Kentucky. Now, the Cats have won 3 straight games on the road. Kentucky's favored by 6.5 points in Baton Rouge tonight. Total was at 164.5. I think I'm a market mover, Donnie. I bet it down to 162.5, where it stands right now with a little bit of juice on the over. Is that 163.5 is where the number opened up? It's worked its way in both directions here on this Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game to see it play out because we are expecting tempo, and quite frankly, that tempo usually comes from the Kentucky side here, sort of pulling themselves back up here. One of those teams that I'm looking forward to heading into March Madness, and more particularly here, the SEC Conference Tournament. But if you're taking a look at why we expect so many shots to get off here tonight, LSU's defense, not great. Kentucky's defense, not great, and particularly at turning the basketball over. 14 teams here, Ben, as we just said here in the SEC. 11th at turning it over is LSU. 12th at turning it over is Kentucky, which means these offenses should be able to operate and get their shots off. And also, when we take a look at shots, did you know Kentucky, number 1 in SEC play, had making the three-point shot as a team at close to 40%, but they also don't rely on for three-point range. They're about middling here when they're scoring inside the paint here, 5th overall in conference play. But taking a look at LSU as well, number 3, Ben, in conference play, making the three-point shot at 37%. And again, right around that mid-level, 6th to 7th in conference play at actually taking three-point shot attempts here. If the threes go down, we'll get some points in this game, but I do like the tempo alone with extra opportunities. We're not looking at two defenses that are really going to clamp down and say, hey, you know what? We're going to steal possessions here. Those shots would fall free tonight, and we're probably looking at close to that total points. But I do like Kentucky in this game as well. I think they're coming on at the right time of the season. Winners of 3 out of the past 4, whereas LSU has lost 3 of their past 4. Give me Kentucky in this game, and I think we get the tempo as well for a possible total.
3 straight wins on the road in conference play is something to pay attention to. Kentucky had lost 4 of its last 6. Now they have won 2 straight in both of those games. Total going under. Kentucky 82nd in defensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm around the country. They couldn't stop anybody early on. I was betting Kentucky overs all year long. I lean the under tonight because of where things stand for the Cats. They are a 6.5-point favorite on the road, and the Tigers on the other side. LSU is just 6-6 in SEC play so far, or 5-7, in SEC play so far this season. They have covered only in 5 games. In 4 of the 5 covers, LSU has stayed under. I think this game is competitive. Home underdog getting 6.5 points tonight. Kentucky might win outright. I don't know if they can cover a 6.5-point number. ACC action, where I like another under as well at 150.5 tonight in South Florida between Miami and Duke. Duke has won 4 straight. They have covered in all 4 games under. Miami has lost 4 straight, a dog in all 4, only covering once. Duke laying 6.5 on the road tonight in Coral Gables.
Yeah, just looking at Miami and ACC play, it just hasn't been good enough. And coming off the season they had last year, we expected big things out of the Miami Hurricanes and haven't gotten any of that, particularly, Ben, on the offensive side. Turned the basketball over way too much. And also, when we talk about 15 teams here in the ACC, you want the free points. You want the easy points here. It means getting to the free throw line. 14th out of 15 teams are the Miami Hurricanes in the ACC at getting to the free throw line, which means you're going to be challenged all the way through. If you flip it over and take a look at Miami on defense, they technically don't foul a lot, which should help them. But here's the issue. It's college basketball. It's analytics. The more three-point shots you put up and you have a decent success rate, the better chance for your winning. Miami doesn't have that. Duke does. Second in ACC play, close to 38% as a team from the three-point line. And how does that match up? How about Miami's defense? We just told you there's 15 teams in the ACC. They're 15th, Ben, at allowing you to shoot the three-point shot. So if you are looking at a team that wants to shoot the three-point shot, makes a good amount of those, and you let them shoot three-point shots, it usually doesn't work out in your favor. And I know Miami desperately needs this win, but just because you're desperate doesn't mean you're just going to automatically pick up a W. Duke's the better basketball team in this game. They should win this going away, Ben.
It will be really interesting in that ACC title race. If Duke wins tonight, and they are favored to do so, 6.5-point favorite on the road, they will be 12-3 in the Atlantic Coast Conference. North Carolina is 12-3 in the Atlantic Coast Conference. They face each other in Cameron Indoor to end out the regular season. The Tar Heels at this moment, a -260 favorite to win the ACC regular season crown. DePaul's not winning the Big East. Marquette probably not either, despite the loss for UConn last night in Omaha. But Marquette does get UConn at home before this regular season comes to a close. The Golden Eagles, a 26.5-point favorite in Milwaukee tonight. A true Midwest matchup between a team from Milwaukee and a team from Chicago.
Yeah, by the way, you're trying to just throw a knockout punch in this game if you're Marquette. You want to get that bad taste out of your mouth there in the Big East from losing to UConn on the road. This is the perfect team to do it against. Why? There's 11 teams here in conference play. You know who's 11th at defending the three-point shot? It's DePaul. You know who shoots the three-point shot at an incredible rate? It's Marquette on offense. It should be absolute bombs away from three-point range. Now, do you want to lay that heavy of a number? Probably not. But if you are looking for a team to get up off of the mat and say, you know what, that was just a bad basketball game, maybe you look for a double-digit win in the first half here and cover that number that way. I look for a big night from Marquette from the three-point line. Bombs away, baby, on Marquette.
The Blue Demons are 0-14 in the Big East. They've only covered 5 times, but in 4 of those 5 times, they've been getting more than 16 points. They have gone over for what it is worth in 6 of their last 9. If Marquette keeps the scoring up, maybe DePaul can contribute just a little bit. Big Ten Bash tonight in Happy Valley in State College. Penn State, a 7.5-point home underdog against Illinois. The Illini playing really good basketball. Kanye Clary, the leading scorer for Penn State, dismissed from the program earlier this week. It's been an interesting year for Mike Rhodes in his opening season as the head coach for Penn State. What do you expect tonight between the Illini and the Nittany Lions?
Illinois gives up more points in the paint basically than any other team in the Big Ten by percentages here. The only issue is Penn State really doesn't want those points. They want it from the three-point line, but a tough choice here tonight for Penn State, who's third in line in the Big Ten at shooting the three-point shot. And guess who chases you off that line more than anybody else? It's Illinois. This is a bad matchup for Penn State tonight. Illinois should roll for me, Ben.
Yeah, listen, road team laying 7.5 in Big Ten play has not been profitable this year. I would lean with the Fighting Illini. Can Nebraska get a road win? They're a slight 1.5 favorite in Assembly Hall against Indiana. We have talked about this trend often. We see it tonight in a large way. New Mexico, the unranked team at home against 22nd ranked Colorado State. In the Lobos, the unranked team, a home favorite. It's not even 2.5 or 3.5. It's 6 and a hook in favor of Richard Pitino. Can the Lobos win and maybe even cover?
I like the over in this game, actually, Ben. You take a look at two teams that don't really rely all that much on the three-point shot. You take a look at New Mexico, who actually is number 1 in conference play at point distribution inside the three-point line. And how about there for Colorado State? 4th here. Not relying on the three-point shot and getting over totals. It's happening tonight out there in the Mountain West.
6th fastest tempo in all of the country for New Mexico. Again, the home team, unranked against a ranked opponent, is now 7-3 when booked as a favorite against the spread in the month of February.